We did.
Told you it wasn't worth the hoop, but we'd take him anyhow.
Right.
Bottom of the barrel. Take what you can get, right?
Here's your salary, 1.575. So $15.75. What are you doing, Kokomo, kid? Oh. I woke up this morning with a cat on my chest and a 60, 70-pound dog across my feet. And they, of course, they wanted to go out. The dog wanted to go out early, so.
All right. It is 5:30. It is 5:30, and I will call this first meeting of 2026 of the Pulaski County Economic Development Commission to order. Noting that we have a new member joining us in Parker. We are grateful to have you here. First thing on the agenda is our consent agenda. Are there any with requests for withdrawal, or are we okay to get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Next on our agenda is the election of officers for 2026. 2025 president was Al. Christian was our secretary. And Blake Caston, whom Parker has replaced, was our vice president. The president obviously runs meetings, occasionally may have to sign a document or two, and by virtue of serving as president, serves a concurrent term on the CDC, which entails 4 additional meetings each year. Vice president runs meetings in the absence of the president. And quite honestly, given that there are only 3 of you on the commission, I don't know, unless it were absolutely critical, we would want to have a meeting if we knew the president was not going to be here. It's pretty difficult to operate a 2-man agency. And then the secretary is asked to review and to okay minutes before they are disseminated, but does not draft them. Taylor or I will do that, and occasionally attests a few signatures. Do we have any volunteers or nominations for the office of President of the Economic Development Commission?
I formally nominate Al.
Any other nominations or volunteers? Do we have any volunteers or nominations for the office of Vice President?
I nominate Christian as, no, I'm sorry, I nominate Parker as vice president.
Do you accept? Is that, or you're going to be secretary? Law says every one of you has to.
Yeah.
Do we have any nominations or volunteers for the office of secretary?
You get me again.
Yep, nominate Christian again for secretary.
If there are no other volunteers or nominations, I will entertain a motion to close nominations and to accept the slate as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Officers have been elected for the year. Al, you're in charge, and that means you get to see me on Tuesday as well.
I knew that.
Moving into old business. I'm going to touch just briefly on the 2 housing projects that we've had on the agenda. If you want to pass these down, please. Put them up next to your name tags. We agreed in November we would take these off of the agenda going forward. I wanted to keep them back for one, just to give you a couple of final updates. Willow Creek Villas, 100% leased. And I don't have confirmation that this happened, but they were expecting the last tenants to be moving in by the end of last week. That they filled those very quickly. I don't know, Al, other than the parking issues, if you have any observations to share living across the street, but it seems to be an appreciated asset in the community.
I've had nothing but positive, and they're my neighbors. It seems to bother other people that I have new neighbors. I like neighbors. It doesn't bother me much. We have to have housing. We've complained about housing for how long. We get housing, we start to fill it, and then you start seeing the chit chatter about, well, it was so quiet back there and it's such a nice little area. And it's still a nice little area. And those people have come and gone. I've talked to numerous people there. The parking issue, they did talk to them. It's improved immensely, especially when it snows. We may still need to put no parking signs on there. I need to talk, the next town council meeting, I'm on the agenda to talk about some of the traffic control we wanted to do in that area. The new exit going north and then toward Dr. Goodis' office is being used quite a bit. People aren't going 60 miles an hour. They're using that like they should. So I personally am excited about the new housing, excited that it filled up so fast. I think it proved that we do need housing, and there is people there that need somewhere to live. I have no negatives about it right now.
Great, thank you for sharing. Any questions on that before that is entirely in the rearview mirror then? All right, the other project quickly, what had been called the Catalyst Project by the housing consultants that Community Foundation had brought in, which we had tentatively dubbed Pleasant View Village when we were thinking about doing development out on the old county farm property across from Pleasant View. As I had reported last fall, we had been working on a potential land swap with the Galbraith family. The town council did not want to develop that area, and between electrical utilities and planned water and sewer expansion on the north side of town, they favored that as well. Had appraisals done, everything more or less lined up, but the county commissioners are not ready to dispose of the farm ground, and without that, there's really not a means for us to acquire that property. I don't remember if I expressed this with you or only with the redevelopment commission. I know I said it to the commissioners. I had kind of started to rethink the vision for that property. I've always been more of an infill, small scale development guy, especially small community like this, rather than trying to build out a neighborhood for 20 homes at one point. But even if we had kind of gone that way and looked at buying a few lots in Winnemac, a lot in Francisville, a lot in Maderryville or Monterey and so on, the swap would have been nice for the extra cash it would have generated. So right now, that's not to say the commissioners might not change their mind in the future. They did give me the green light to go ahead and have that property on the south side of town split and surveyed, because right now the recycling and transfer station, the farm ground on the north side of the county road closest to Pleasant View, and most of the ground on the south side of the county road are all one giant parcel split by 3 or 4 different roads.
Does this include the building itself? No.
That is separate. So that's housing in that particular form or vision is not moving forward at this time. It may be revisited in the future. Disposing of the land to use the proceeds for other purposes may be revisited in the future, but right now we'll look at other potential opportunities for housing on a smaller scale that might fit, but that will entail obviously looking for different funding sources and partners within a capital stack. And we've had and will continue to have some pretty robust conversations with the redevelopment commission as we work to figure out what our vision is, what like short-term goals look like, midterm, longer term, and housing is certainly a concept that we are discussing there. But that's the last on housing that we will discuss unless and until we reach some point where it's necessary. Like if there is a multifamily housing development where they want to request a tax abatement, and most likely that would probably go through the town rather than an unincorporated area and the town. So if the town council wanted our input on that, we're only mandated, so to speak, to provide that for the county council, but if the town council wanted the extra eyes on it, that could be. But otherwise, we probably won't be discussing a whole lot of housing, the EDC, for a while.
So just a kind of a general question, I guess, is the commissioners kind of taking a wait and see attitude with the development in Al's neighborhood, or?
They weren't explicit as to why they didn't, other than they wanted to put it back into cash rent for at least one more year.
Sure. Okay.
I did hear that the 2 homes on East Galbraith Drive, the original one when you first pull in is sold. The one that TK's Homes from Lafayette themselves have put up. It's not sold yet, but they're pretty much finished. They're working on the inside. And what I understand, that's the only 2 going in there for this time right now. Okay. One of the developers had talked about putting a couple homes across from McDonald's back behind that area back there, because there is a few homes back there, so. I'm always nosy with my neighbors. If I see something going on, I want to know what's going on, so.
All right, moving along, old business. Also, the last time we have to talk about the revolving loan fund in this particular sense or framework, the program is live. As of the first of the year, got everything updated. The commissioners approved going live. The county attorney reviewed and okayed the proposed changes that Sheila, Blake, and I had written and tweeted and sent to him for review. I have delivered paperwork to and discussed an application with one potential borrower and reached out to one from whom I have not heard back, and had a phone conversation with one who is working on figuring out exactly what her needs might be from her equipment supplier before she knows if she is ready to move forward. But we have one probable, one quite possible, and one maybe possible applicant in the pipeline already.
So that's been word of mouth advertisement to this point. How else are we making?
Mostly word of mouth. So I don't remember which edition it went in, but right now I'm doing once a quarter. I'm doing an ad in the journal.
Okay.
Occasionally bumping it on social media. In March, I am going to be the guest presenter at the Uptown Project, the Main Street Group in Francisville, at their quarterly business breakfast, where the main topic will be the revolving loan fund, supplemented by other non-banking options that either are used on their own or in a capital stack with lending. Like, I don't know if, Christian, you're familiar with the SBA's 504 program.
Yeah.
So talking about those. And then I'm going to talk to what's left of Main Street Winnemac Board of Directors about doing a similar program in Winnemac, whether it be a business breakfast or just an evening program. But so it's a combination of print media, social media, talking about it in meetings when relevant, and a couple of presentations.
What is the balance in that?
374-ish.
So what's the criteria for the maximum somebody can borrow from that?
What the EDC and or the commissioners are comfortable lending, depending on
the business,
the balance and the business proposal, like how strong the plan is, like how many jobs it's going to create, and or what sort of quality of life value it's going to add. There is no set maximum at this time. It's just at the discretion of the EDC and or commissioners.
And right now, just taking applications, but my opinion would be bang for buck. Right. So
definitely.
If we set a maximum, I think we can help 5 businesses instead of 1 business.
Sure.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
To be sort of a supplemental loan program,
The one who is most probable, I've talked to them and said, like, we have enough that we could cover your entire need, but I'm not sure that that's something the county is really wanting to do, just because of what you're saying. We want to help, and they are doing their own sort of funding stack between cashing out a CD and X and Y and Z, that they are reducing their expected need anyway. So yeah, I think I've made that clear with the one I've had an in-depth conversation with. Won't get into the weeds like that with the second one until I hear back from her and she knows her roadmap. But I absolutely, we want to be able to help as many as possible. And I'm hoping that we get to the point where, now that we have it back open, things are going smoothly enough that we can look into opportunities for adding more to the balance if we need to. I mean, this is probably the highest cash balance we've had, if not, honestly, potentially since I started here.
Well, how long has it been closed? That's
Since 2021.
right. So I thought maybe the interest
Maybe
would be
before we made the loan to my Russian friend, it might have, because that was a pretty sizable loan. It might have been built up, but it's, we got part of what we lost on him refunded, and we've had several years of payments coming in without any going out. And so this is just about the healthiest I remember the balance being.
Well, this is something that I personally feel that this committee needs to champion.
Yes,
Making sure that, if we do give out, disbursements from it, that we're doing what we can to replenish it and try to solicit those funds from whether it's the commissioner or the council. However we need to do it, but I personally feel that this is something we need to champion.
And there are the funding source from which the seed funding for this program originally derived I don't think it exists anymore. The overall federal program does, but I haven't seen it support revolving loan funds my entire 15, 16 years in community development. But there are other grant programs, like the United States Department of Agriculture's Rural Development Division has programs. The only problem with like that option, as opposed to where this money came from, is that one is essentially we are borrowing from them at like say 2% interest and then lending out at like 3%. So we obviously never want to have another situation where we lose some of what we have lent, but under current situation, like we have a little more flexibility to be less risk averse because we don't have to pay anyone back. But when we start getting into funds that are themselves revolving, it forces us to tighten our parameters a little bit,
Right.
Not be as generous in trying to support our efforts. But there are options outside of the county revenue stream for adding to the balance if and when that is something in interest.
Well, and I think we're in a unique position with the size of the balance to sort of have some proof in the pudding when we go request more funds.
Yes.
Right. So if we're judicious about our distributions and approval process, we can sort of go to the table with some success stories.
Right, if we go there under control and with the.
Well,
stats.
as we go there and say, hey, look, here's 3 businesses we've already helped and they're healthier,
Right.
they were before they received the monies. Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Or even applicants in your back pocket already.
Yeah.
Tell them why we need more funds. Right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, we can stop talking about how we're trying
excited
to
about it. We're
now
excited
we can start talking publicly about how the program is active and how great it is, but we can stop talking about how we're not making any progress.
Exactly.
I'm really glad that Jenny was at that last meeting and had a conversation with the county's attorney after we talked about how we were dragging our feet, because it was very quickly thereafter that we were making progress. All right, moving along to new business. Speaking of the revolving loan fund, in your packet, pages 5 through 9, we need to approve the renewal of our agreement with the regional development company who do all of our credit memos and so on, and make recommendations to us for any loan with a balance, with an amount greater than $20,000. They are the Northwest Indiana agency that manages the 504 program that I mentioned recently. And so they have done several loan reviews for us. That way we're not, asking the banker on the committee to carve out more time to do the deep dive, as opposed to just bringing his banking expertise to the conversation once they have done that.
Is that pretty much of an average per hour charge for something like that? $100
That's
per hour?
what they it's the same thing they were charging me 10 years ago. We'll put it that way. They have not increased, and probably shouldn't say this publicly, but they have gotten out of the revolving loan fund management business, but they like me so much that they said that they would keep doing it for us. There are people who like me out.
You do have a friend.
I have at least one, yes.
Oh, you got 3 or 4.
In the event that we have an influx of applicants, given that we're
Yep.
currently pounding the pavement on this, do we foresee the 50 hours in a situation where that's not enough?
I don't think they've ever taken more than 5 or 6 hours on one that they billed us for. So it would be, you're looking at 10 or 12 before we run into trouble.
Okay.
So do you have any questions about that? It's fairly straightforward. You've seen it. It's the same one that we've had when the program has been active since 2016.
Right.
They either bill my office and then we get reimbursed by the borrower. Either they cut a check or we just take it out of their loan, or they just bill the whatever. We do it on a case by case basis, but either way, it is one of the costs that the borrower incurs. So
Is there an incentive in that loan for the borrower to pay back sooner?
just
Other-
marginally less interest.
Right, less interest.
Which they're getting a rate discount as it is.
Right.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Another question, just because we have not dealt with the revolving loan fund, do they give us a memo?
Yes. So they will
And
get,
that's it? Do they, or is the analyst available for a discussion with the committee?
they are. We have
Okay.
never asked them to, but that is in terms that they will meet with us if necessary. They'll provide a memo that includes a risk rating score.
Sure.
If I recall correctly, at least if I ask them, they will still use the old 8-point scoring scale that they used to use. The SBA now has them using basically a 2-point scale. But in the past, they've done the 8-point. So with our being a little less risk averse, it gives us a little better breakdown of how strong the application is and gives us a little more guidance as we're being flexible.
Sure.
But yeah, they will meet with us if we ask them to.
That's not as much of an ask as it used to be either, right? They can
Right.
attend virtually, so.
And they love coming to Winnipeg. They come to almost every one of our annual summits.
So do they.
Yeah, they're great. They actually, one year, the CEO spoke at one of the summits.
Well, going through it, I saw nothing that really jumped out. I was just wondering about the per hour rate, and I assumed that was normal. That seems fairly low.
It's what they pay, what they have charged us since we started working with them, and it's what they were charging the other programs when they were still managing for them.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the basic agreement as written.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions, concerns on the matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will ask Christian and Al to sign this after the meeting, and we will have them ready to go when that first application comes in. Next up, pages 10 through 15, which include the two larger sheets that are not stapled. I don't want to take a deep dive into this into the meeting tonight, but I wanted to make sure you guys had print copies. As we know, unless in the home stretch of the Legislative Assembly, something changes drastically, how the state taxes business personal property is going to change substantially in a couple of years. Higher exemption rate from $80,000 to $200,000. Changes to the depreciation schedule so that the long-term, the theoretical long-term benefits of a tax abatement, you're getting that, you're looking at it as a cost of doing business, and after a certain number of years, you'll start getting revenue. That's not as good for the county and the other affected taxing units as it currently is because of those changes. And so by the time you have gotten through that tax abatement schedule, depending on how long it is, there's very little value left because that 30% floor is no longer protecting you. So outside of projects, whether it's solar project or even a smaller scale where the applicant agrees to this, outside of projects with some sort of economic development agreement where you've got some sort of alternate revenue stream, tax abatement under like the quote unquote traditional 190, 80, 70 phase-in schedule, it doesn't work. So I've got in here the, I think our guidelines for the program as well as the scoring rubric. I don't think like the application needs to change a whole lot, but how we score them in light of the decreased taxable value by the time the abatement is phasing out is going to have to take some effort from us. Because obviously we want to still have it as a tool in the toolbox, but it's going to be a more problematic tool. And so, right now we might say that a 92% gets 100% in years 1 through 4 before it starts to phase in. It might only be years 1 through 2 before the phase in, so that we are not losing as much of that taxable value. So I sent these out. You have access to them. I will send out some of the documents from a few years ago that when we first put this all together. But we're going to have some conversations about that. Any initial questions or thoughts about this as we dive into this process?
We want it to be as generally applicable as possible, right? But I mean, if we have to custom fit some of them, so be it. And I don't think we foresee, a massive influx of these applications either, right? So if we're forced to do that on a case-by-case basis, it's not going to be the end of the world.
And that works for me. It just, whatever gets us in the position where we feel like the recommendation going to the council is robust enough that the business, the reality is very few companies historically that have gotten tax abatements weren't going to proceed with the project. I can think of a handful where they had, say, a plant in another state or another county where it was a real concern, or they might have scaled back the investment. But it's at the end, in most cases, I think it just needs to be robust enough to show you are welcome here. We appreciate that you choose to continue operating in Pulaski County and investing here while taking into consideration these changes on the assessment side, because the state's giving them a tax abatement after a certain number of years built in regardless. And so ideally, if I'm John's widget factory, if I get a smaller tax abatement, I'm not actually going to see that big of a loss in benefit because the state's just picking up the slack with the built-in structures. So I will send some stuff out to you so that we can start working on this. Moving on, Pulaski County Comprehensive Plan. I will pretend that you are all dumb and have no idea what a comprehensive plan is or it is for. Comprehensive plan is a fundamental visioning document for the county, focused largely, but not exclusively, on land use and related matters, especially like transportation, circulation, that sort of thing. But it is supposed to be used as sort of a guiding light for Plan Commission, BZA, county commissioners, when they are either making changes to the zoning ordinance or any other part of the land use regulations, or when they are making decisions about BZA, special exception requests, Plan Commission, zoning change requests, that sort of thing. It can also be a much bigger sort of vision document for the community, depending on how the community approaches it. Pulaski County adopted its current, and it might be its first true comprehensive plan in 2009. And I say that it might be because even though there were past efforts, the county was the last county north of I-70 to have countywide zoning, and that didn't happen until 2012. Previous attempts had fallen short, so until then, only the towns of Francisville and Winnemac had zoning. And the county has not touched the the comprehensive plan since 2009. And in that time, in addition to like reactive changes that have been made regarding solar and wind, we completely replaced the original zoning documents in 2015 because the ones we adopted in 2011 to go into effect in 2012 are not super great. But we have made several changes, wholesale overhaul and adjustments to the ordinance since then. We haven't touched it since then. We have seen significant change both at the county level and the global level between solar projects and demographic changes and everything that COVID did to change the way we operate when we shut down, and everything changed. And so the county is moving forward with a new comprehensive plan this year. Right now, I believe we have sent the request for proposal out to 12 consulting firms, and I have heard back from 7 of them. We've also listed it on the Indiana chapter of the American Planning Association's website. Proposals are due to me and our building inspector at the end of this month. It is more than anyone's, it is the Plan Commission's baby. But because we have scoped such a broad vision for the things that we want out of this plan, the RC, the EDC, the CDC, all of the bodies I work with are going to have a role to play in helping to shape this and more so to implement it. So first of all, I'm hoping that you all as members of the community will, as time allows, participate in the public engagement portion of the process when that begins. But I'm also going to bring the consultants, depending on what's negotiated in their contract for number of meetings, to either a meeting of the EDC or a massive joint session of the CDC, the EDC, the Redevelopment Commission, Tourism Council, and Industrial Park Board, so that we're not all having the same conversation 5 times. The Redevelopment Commission, I'm going to think we'll probably have a separate meeting with them if possible outside of the major meeting, because after the Plan Commission, it's probably the second most important body as far as implementing what comes out of it will look like. But I want all of the commissions to be involved in the process, know what's going on, and for members to try to engage in that. Like I said, the proposals are not due until the end of this month. So by the time our committee has has reviewed the proposals, decided how many of the applicants we want to interview, conducted those interviews, negotiated terms, and taken that to the commissioners, it's going to be late spring, early summer before the process likely starts in earnest. But I do want to make sure that the consultants are in front of this body one way or another. Any questions, comments on the comp plan process at this time?
Looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, I am too. Next on the agenda, 2026 Economic Development Summit. As 2 of you know, Parker might not really, every year in the spring, we do like an annual meeting. Because we're not because we're a county agency and we're not a nonprofit, private sector economic development, we don't do an annual meeting in the traditional sense where we like have board elections and all of that stuff. But we do we celebrate, I give a state of the county economy address. We bring in a keynote speaker, there's dinner. And I am hopeful that you guys can make it work. We don't have the venue selected yet. That'll be a conversation we have at the CDC meeting next week for the specific date, but we've been tending towards late April so that we keep it early in the year, but are avoiding weather. We used to do it in March and we had some hit and miss issues with attendance back then. So I hope you guys can make it. If you have any ideas for what topic you would like to hear the guest speaker talk about, please, if they're on the tip of your tongue now, let me know. Otherwise, shoot me an email, give me a call, whatever. The only concrete recommendation I've gotten in all these meetings to take to the CDC so far is focused on redevelopment, like looking at rural towns or counties who have had successful redevelopment commissions and programs in Indiana. If we can find somebody to talk about how they found their way, their mission, their vision, what kind of cool things they've been able to do, how they funded it, that sort of thing. I like that idea, but I am open to taking anything else any of you guys might have to the CDC to hash out next week.
I would second that idea.
Parker, Al, any thoughts at the moment?
It's just we're such a small entity, a small community, so I don't think we want to bring anybody in that's changed things in Lafayette or whatever, Kokomo. I think we need to stay local. I think we need to consider our friends, our neighbors, and what we're going through and what we could have here that would be reachable rather than try to, go above our heads. So progress is painful sometimes. And I mean, to me, sometimes slower progress, looking into it better, having somebody come in that says, hey, we worked with this smaller community and this worked and that worked, I think would definitely be better for us to look at.
I think as you look into this, it may be interesting to see finding a similar sized community who has turned around.
Yep.
It may be a body like ours or somebody who's spearheaded it, but having somebody, sometimes it helps having an outside voice come in and say what you've been saying the whole time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? To say, hey, if we're all pulling in the same direction, we can accomplish this. But I think that'd be a fantastic idea
Cool.
if we can identify that.
And I'm gonna, assuming that's where the CDC wants to lean, I'll reach out. I'm a member of the Redevelopment Association of Indiana, so I will reach out and see if either somebody on their staff would be in the position to do it, or if they can connect me to a rural county or a small town in the state that has staff and that fits that bill, that has made that turnaround, that has been a really successful redevelopment commission in a smaller community. But I'd like to think, I've only been a member for a little more than a year, but it seems to be a really resourceful, reliable organization. Anything else on that? All right. Next up, future meeting scheduling. I think, as I told you guys last year and as I told all the other commissions, I don't want to have a regular set schedule just to meet. I don't want you guys to show up so we can, let's approve the minutes, approve the agenda, and talk about something we've talked about. But I do think we obviously need to prioritize spending time on the abatement rules review. I would recommend, unless things drag out and like the applicant I'm expecting don't move forward, maybe try to align that with a RLF meeting, just like we don't have anything pressing besides these two things. So on March 13th, do an executive session to interview the RLF applicant, go into regular session, discuss that, dive into this, nothing else on the agenda sort of thing. And then if, like I said, whatever reason, those applications aren't forthcoming, we can just schedule a meeting to discuss this project. Otherwise, maybe in May we meet, and perhaps that aligns with more work on the abatement rules process. Maybe it aligns with another RLF application, but I would like to meet in May to discuss the 2027 budget. Technically, under law, the Redevelopment Commission and the EDC are supposed to have their own budgets. Because we are new to this structure and our first year of operations was the last year of one county auditor, and our second year was I didn't want to ask the auditor's office to take on the burden of creating two new departments within the budget, particularly when we're not going to have especially comprehensive budgets. All of the staff costs are still going to be in the departmental budget because one department is supporting all of these commissions. So in the case of the EDC, there might only be 2 or 3 line items where we need a budget. And so it has seemed unnecessary to do that. But now that Teresa is in her second year as auditor and we should be complying with the law, I think it's time to have that conversation that now that she's been through the budget process once, we can get ours. And like I said, it won't be super comprehensive. I'll still show you like the departmental budget, but the only ones you guys will have to vote formally to have me take to the council would be those EDC line items, where we might move in some of the professional services line item or the economic development line item, those sorts of things, just so that there's a clearer distinction in the paper trail between what I'm spending in the budget for this agency's work versus the Redevelopment Commission's work versus tourism work and so on. So meet maybe in early March, depending on what the RLF application schedule looks like, to address that first application and to check in on the abatement rules, play it by ear after that until May, when we'll pick up any business that needs to be picked up if we haven't already, and talk about a budget. And then I don't know personally that it's necessary to meet again until maybe a later in the year check-in like we did last year, unless and until more abatement or RLF applications come in. But if you guys want to meet more often, we can. We're working on setting a regular meeting schedule for the Redevelopment Commission, at least this year, because we're going so hard on visioning, fleshing out what sort of projects we might want to prioritize. But since the RC is doing more of that sort of project and program focus, and right now we're mostly focusing on application approval role for the EDC. I don't know that that's critical.
I think we're all flexible enough that if something came up, we'd be able to adjust it. 'Cause I'm like you, I don't want to sit here and smile all night, with nothing to do.
I
So
like your
think,
smile though, Al.
I think having something to discuss is.
All right. So yeah, I will send out, like I said, some of that abatement stuff, and I'll let you know where things are moving with the RLF.
Do we want to, I think this is important for scheduling. Do we want to try to herd those applications in a way so they're not splintered throughout the year?
If possible, yes. Like, I don't want to
So-
rush it, but yes, I am hoping, and maybe,
So we don't end up with 6 meetings,
Right.
6 different applications or whatever the case.
yeah, yes, but I know historically some of them have required more time than others, so it might be that we have to have 2 in the same month to get through it. And others, we meet once, it's been, obviously, it's a new process for the EDC. And I'm hoping that it's smooth enough that it's just like, all right, executive session, go into public session, and we're ready to make a decision. But that's not always going to be the case. So even if, like we said, all right, if you are submitting an application for the RLF, it has to be due by the last business day of the second month of each quarter. And then we will hold a meeting to review all applications the last week of the last month of the quarter. There is always going to be the possibility that that turns into a meeting in the, 2 weeks later because, but I'm not opposed to, like I said, if, maybe wait and see how it goes. And if we do get flooded, like if we want to adopt some sort of quarterly application process or bi-monthly, whatever, just so we aren't meeting to discuss just one loan application 7 times.
Yeah.
I think once in the past, we had a meeting, a CDC meeting where we did just like 2 at one time. And it depends substantially on how strong the application is, how much they're asking, how much is in the fund. But it is certainly possible to get through 2 applications in one meeting. Certainly possible 2 meetings to get through 1 application.
On one hand, if we had applications in and approved one, that would be nice to have at the state of the county. At the same time, it would be nice to push the program at the state of the county.
And we can,
We can do both, but I don't know. Based on who you've talked to, if you think we may have applications in by then, but if so, then
one,
March.
I would guess 1 for sure. Number 2, I'm not so sure yet. And number 3, I'm skeptical. All right. Any of you have anything else for the good of the order? I want to note, I think not every time, but I feel like every other time I see Christian at a meeting, I have run into his dad like that day. Went to lunch at Jack's today, and there he was having lunch with a high school friend of mine. And I actually, which is funny because I actually saw him just last week walking through the other building. It's like these 2 come in pairs. If I'm seeing one of them.
But only once in the same room.
Yes. I've never seen them in the same room. I don't know. They're not actually the same person. Any of you guys have anything for the good of the order?
Just want to thank Parker for accepting this position, being here with us. I think his background and I know his work ethic and what he feels about our community, I think it'll be a good addition. And I'm glad you're here.
I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Any public comment tonight? Other one is, you can turn that one on though. You don't need to switch seats.
I feel like you can hear me anyway. Hi, guys. All right. First of all, I'm pretty excited to hear about the revolving loan fund being reignited. So I have a few questions that I wrote down around this in the hopes that we can perhaps come to a standardized application and review process. And maybe there is something already in the works and I just didn't grasp enough of it this evening. But my asks or ideas for something to come out of this that's a little more structured would perhaps ease the flow of things for everyone, both the applicant and those reviewing. So the things that I just wrote down were is the criteria publicized, right? So if there is criteria, what is it? Is it publicized? Where I think Christian's point on like where it's being advertised is important.
What do you
but
mean by criteria?
If there is criteria, I don't know, like, are there certain standards where you say, again, it's a question because I don't know, that we expect you to be in operation in Pulaski County for X number of years, or we are hopeful that you can produce this kind of impact on the county, or you'll employ at least 1 to 2 full-time people, or I don't know what that criteria is or could be, but it could help you in your evaluation.
So yeah, there's no like set, like, all right, you're requesting $10,000. Unless you create 3 jobs, you're only getting 90%. But there is language in the application guidelines and a question in the application addressing that point. And then the commission and the commissioners have the flexibility to look at that in the whole picture of things, like what the jobs are, what the wages are. I think there is a reference to even the word living as in a living wage, and then, balance that against whether it's something that adds quality of life, what the balance of the fund is. So there's not a hard and fast rubric, but those sorts of things are addressed in the guidelines in the application, yes.
Okay, so again, I don't expect for all of these to have to be answered. I'm just trying to help both sides of the party, both the applicant and you guys in your review process. So if it's already there, maybe it could be publicized somehow and made easily available to those who might be interested. And that would also probably mitigate some of the one-on-one conversations, Nathan, that you're having to have with potential applicants, because they could self-serve themselves in getting some of the information and the criteria. And you could use that time perhaps in another manner. I don't know. So
That's a good point to bring up, because it'll be my first time dealing with this. So I'm starting on the ground floor.
I think the more public we can make that the program is available in the standardized application process, the better. So I'm in agreement with that.
And then if in like a subsequent part of that, if there's the standard application form, which it sounds like there is, and that's where that criteria is, perhaps that's just an all-in-one piece that gets put out there. And then is there a standard business plan that the board asks to be completed? And let me go through all of these a little bit so that you understand what my thinking was behind asking things. So a standard business plan that the board asks to be completed by the applicants, which could pair with a standard scorecard for you for evaluating the application, right? So if they all come in and only have pieces and parts and you have a lot of questions, it's hard for you to compare an apple to an orange. And I understand that these are going to be different types of business units, perhaps in different verticals, different industries. But if you at least have a baseline for your application. So let's think really optimistically here, in that you're going to have an influx of applications and we're not going to have enough money to give out because we have so many business ideas that we want to support. This standardized business plan and a standardized scorecard of some manner would help you in your evaluation, would be my hope. And then you touched on this a little bit, but the risk and reward and the impact assessed. So we really want to be able to utilize these as success stories. So how can we as a board, you as a board, we as a community, say we will be asking these applicants, if approval is awarded, for them to measure impact in some way. So like asks of what we're lending to. And I don't have answers or suggestions on what those should be, but you as a way to have some metrics, some KPIs that say, this is how we're impacting the community through those that we're lending to be able to help tell that story. And then I had one thought on the standardizing a timeline for approval. So I think, as you can hear by my talking, I'm all about standardization when possible, with the caveat of, if somebody needed to know, because there was like a timing constraint on like maybe being able to secure a facility, like I only have 2 months to let this property owner know if I can purchase this land, or this building owner know if I can rent, then maybe you would have to make a special exception. But other than that, standardizing it allows for both the applicant and you to have a process. And then just for you guys, I think it would be helpful, especially Al, you said this was your first time being a participant in it. Parker, you're a new member to the board, a process map that then subsequently lists the supporting documents that are required at each stage. And then you guys could take this standardized process that you come up with. So my thought here is that if this doesn't exist, that you could come up with it and then present that to the commissioners and say, this is our way forward. And that again, just shows the community your vested interest in this program and perhaps gets a little more excitement around it because it's a really great opportunity for those who can utilize it. And so I'm really excited to see it come about. And I hope that I came across as an enthusiastic, but yet trying to put some standardized processes in places where we can.
I think, and I know Parker's probably, in his field, he's probably, standardization is probably huge and crucial. Standardization at Plymouth Tube was improved. When I first started there wasn't much standardization, and all that does is make this much to look at instead of this much to look at. So standardization is good, and having requirements before people even come to us. I want some guy walk in here and say, I'm going to put a worm farm in out here on these 40 acres. Hope the worms are good. You know what
I
I mean?
need worms for my garden.
Yeah, I
So
know
if they're
you
putting in a worm farm, I'll put in an order now.
But I think, the requirements before they even come to us, the requirements need to be pretty standardized is what I'm
We
gonna
do have in the application, we do have a business plan outline and a step-by-step process.
Is that sort of adopted the SBA application process? If not, I would have a recommendation for this because
I
for
don't,
Source is a preferred SBA lender. I do SBA loans a lot. It requires 2 years of projections. It requires, a current or opening day balance sheet. It requires.
Yeah, so we
business plan,
do-
and we can provide, those things are publicly available through Northwest Indiana Score. These are publicly available resources that we can create a standardized application stack.
I don't have the application in front of me to tell you exactly what, but yes, we do. And the loans the loans above 20,000 that go to the RDC, the requirements are a little more comprehensive, but yes, we do require, let's see if I can find where I have that.
Is this information available on the county website,
Yes.
Nathan?
Yes. On the homepage, if you scroll down, there's a box that says economic development, and one of the links in that is financial assistance. And that includes some SBA programs as well as the RLF. Let's see, so.
Do you as a board have the opportunity, if you so choose, to make modifications to the application or the plan or
We can
any of those components?
To a business plan, like if you're applying, if you submit or what,
To what your criteria for
We
this
can
program
recommend
is
it to
and
the
that
commissioners.
business plan that's in there, like, could you as a board make modifications if you
We can
so
make a
chose?
recommendation.
we can recommend it to commissioners, but they have ultimate approval, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, every application requires our application, the supplemental application from the redevelopment commission, or from the redevelopment company, regional development company, if they are being brought in for a 20,000 plus loan. Evidence of adequate security with a role for the county's attorney to play in recommending to the commissioners whether the security is sufficient or not, because we have some variations on what we expect depending on what's being offered and what the amount of the loan is. Business plan, unless requirement has been waived, which we sometimes do if it is an existing business that has a strong operating history. Personal financial statement, SBA form 413, current within 60 days. Personal tax returns for the past 3 years for anyone over 20,000 and any under 20,000 if it is a startup and does not have business personal. Corporate tax returns, key cost documents pertinent to the project, including but not limited to purchase real estate and equipment purchase agreements, any buy-sell agreements, sworn construction statements, general contractor bid and scope of work. Current balance sheet and P&L within 90 days for operating company if existing business applicant. Projected income statement for the first 2 years of operation and opening balance sheet for startup applicants and the fee.
Perhaps, maybe, if I may make a recommendation, you guys could have a session where you're just reviewing that program and your processes and what you'd like to see come out of it. And a point of clarification, if I may ask, Nathan, you said "we" a couple of times, and I know that there's some newness here with that program, and there are new commissioners. So when you say we expect or we ask, can you clarify who we is?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes, like, for
Like
instance,
who,
it's either me or this commission or the commissioners, depending on the specifics of it. So
there's newness there, so that you seem to be
So
the
I
most
like, if
educated on
so
what
if-
it is.
Braun's a bad example, but they're a good example because I never expect that Braun Ability is going to be, if Braun Ability comes to us and says, we want to borrow from the loan program, I can say, you've been around for like 70 years. You're an international company. I don't expect a business plan from you. I can waive that. The EDC can overrule me and say, no, we want Craig to write a business plan for this application, even though, but so I can make a decision like that. They can make a decision to like override me, or they can make that decision to waive it. They can say, you guys have been, we have no concern, everything is, we're not going to require that.
I appreciate that. I guess what I was trying to ascertain is the we component maybe was people in previous positions, because I think it's newer commissioners and a newer
Gotcha.
board here. And so that we is really, at this point now, Nathan.
Well, and to be
Maybe-
fair, although he's never been through this program, we've got a commercial lender on the board who has.
Yes, but he didn't write that stuff. So it's like saying, we expect or we ask, this is
Right.
fairly new.
Well, to be fair, everything he mentioned there is kind of a standardized, you know what I mean, what I would take on an application.
I mean, a lot of it I ripped off from the RDC.
Right.
Oh, and I'm not saying that it's not sufficient. I was just saying, I think there's opportunity perhaps for you guys to become more immersed.
As we're
in it,
gaining knowledge to make
to-
adjustments
for
that we
us
might
to
see.
be- For the community to become more aware of it so that
Sure.
we can promote it better. And then you guys just see, like, you made reference earlier to a 2009 plan, you know, if this is something that maybe needs a few tweaks, or if it doesn't, fine too, but I would just personally like to know more. I don't plan to apply for it, but I want to be an advocate for it. So,
Need all the advocates we can get to get that out there, get used and get businesses going.
well, thank you. That concludes. Thank you for your patience with my
Thanks, man.
questions.
Connie, you got
Thank you,
something?
Brady.
Yes, I do.
It's cool.
Mine's more brief. Two areas I have questions on. One is on the revolving loan fund. Nathan, you appeared in front of the commissioners a few meetings ago, and you requested permission to entertain applicants that could currently have funding with a banking institute. And if it was okay, if you go ahead and perhaps, you know, give consideration to that loan. And I think you also made the comment that we don't want to be just a lower interest rate to these people. Can you give me a situation why someone who has secured a bank loan, why they'd come and try to get a revolving loan fund to
I
the county?
would speculate that the scenario in which that is likely is the case is if for whatever reason they were not able to get a commercial loan and are funding the startup of their small business with a personal loan at a substantially higher interest rate and might want to refi that. Now, refi is very messy in this. We only really allow it if it's an existing borrower, part of a capital. But if we had somebody who was in that sort of situation, especially maybe because the program had been on hiatus for a while, it's not something that I think we would be addressing very frequently, because the underlying sort of purpose of this program is to be that first step so that after one, maybe two loans, they don't need us anymore. They can walk into Christian's office and say, look, I have made it for 4 years. I have successfully made all of my owed payments to the county's program. I'm ready to bank with the big boys. Like,
Correct. They have some history,
yes,
and then they
that's,
can,
it's sort of like
be
the
reviewed.
good project, weak history, pre-bankable project. Now,
Right.
there have been times where it has been a little more complicated than that, and we took a risk as a county.
Right.
I think the best example of that was when what is now Healy's Home Center, when Phil White stepped in with Kyle Kruzik and bought the failing lumberyard from Kyle's dad and turned it around. That was a business that probably should have been bankable, but for whatever reason or reasons, it just wasn't in the position. And I mean, that was a very contentious loan, but the commissioners approved it. And they, Phil eventually bought Kyle's share out, paid off the loan early, sold the business to new owner who is now successfully running it and growing the business. So most of the time, I think it's going to be that pre-bankable, but there may be a case where it is we're going to lose this critical business in the county where we don't have another lumberyard left within like a 30-mile radius. We're going to take that risk.
Yeah, thank you, because I couldn't get my head wrapped around why would we look at that if they've already got secured funding. So thank you. Secondly, since we do have limited funds to land, I hope that situation that you described would be maybe on the back burner and review some first-time entry to business type applications first. And then I'm going to switch gears on you. The Willow Creek Villas. Has there been any survey or research done to find out where those occupants come from? Are they new to the county, or if they're just moving out of other rental units?
I think
Any
for
idea?
the most part, it's relocation within the county.
Within the county?
Yes.
Okay, and then also one more follow-up question. Do you know the length of those leases? Are they 1 year or more?
I don't. I can find out.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say the people I've dealt with over there are very friendly. And the people I've dealt with over there are very friendly. They ask questions. They want to know, about back there, what's going on. So I've not had any issues with that. And I keep my eye on it fairly close. If I see something that seems askew, I get a hold of somebody and want to know what's going on, like with the traffic.
My question is, are we really drawing people, or are we just?
Relocating people, yes.
Honestly, I think with that project, the expectation is more relocating and shaking up a certain segment of the housing market in the county right now. We'll say in politically sensitive terms. You guys have anything else? Otherwise, does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn at 6:31?
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are done. 1 hour and 1 minute and change.
Shortest meeting we've ever had.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, I need signatures
Thank you
from,
guys for your input tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
need signatures from Al and Christian on this one. And just Christian on this one.
Nathan, these are payroll papers.
Yes.
I think I have them all filled out already.
Oh, did I, if I
Yeah,
gave,
we
I,
did last time, like
No, I
beforehand.
still owe you,
did I get you some already? Did I think-
You did.
Okay, I put the, and I said, I think, so I got some to you already too?
Yeah, but I should have everything in, I think, so.
Cool.
if you
Okay,
can-
cool. Then you guys don't need those. I'll
Okay.
take them back and next time I just, I gotta install my, my cable clamp, so that doesn't happen again.
Did you say there was another one for me?
Yes, minutes from November. All right. Oh, you did, sorry.
Yeah, I
I
did that.
didn't get that last item was the date. I should probably shut off the live stream so people don't see me fall again.
Welcome, Parker.
Yep, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. How long you were in Rome, right?
Yep.
Yeah, how long you been